We're all imperfect, and on this podcast, I'll be chatting with a variety of interesting people who are willing to make themselves vulnerable by sharing their own struggles and imperfections.
There's never been a more low point in my life than spending a year trying to get answers, blood work, and hoping there's a fucking problem. Because I can't live like this anymore. Like, I'm having an anxiety attack over whether to brush my teeth before or after having a shower.
I'm Hugh Van Kylenberg from the Resilience Project.
And I'm Ryan Shelton from My Mum.
And I'm Josh from Hugh's mum.
And this is The Imperfects.
Hello everyone. Hello Ryan, hello Josh.
Hello Hugh.
Hey.
God, pretty good day for me to bring my axe. Sorry, for those who don't play guitar, sometimes we call guitars axes. And we got Nathan Cavaleri on today, so
Yeah.
lucky I packed the axe.
You going to treat us to some?
Yeah, probably wail a bit.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Will you melt our faces? Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, with the wailing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know where face melting comes from.
Yeah, tickle the wires.
Yeah, I think your hands are so fast that they melt the face of the guitar, maybe?
No. Surely it's like the face that someone makes when they're right into a bit. It's like their face looks like it's just melting.
When they're playing.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust Josh more than Hugh on guitar knowledge here.
I use face melt. I've never melted a face, but I use the term a lot and I don't know what it means.
I have watched you play guitar and cool dudes also playing guitar, and I've thought their face is melting. That's why it's called that.
Hugh, who's the coolest dude you know?
Coolest dude I know.
Yeah. Go on. First thought that came into your mind.
George is pretty cool.
George, George,
yeah.
who works on the podcast, does the
Yeah.
videos. He'd be
He's
great to
cool.
hear that.
Yeah, he's really cool.
Well, cool dude, I think is what you said.
Cool dude, yeah. Rad dude.
Oh, God, I don't know about that, but yeah.
I think anyone these days with the moustache, with fine tattoos, baggy pants, that's to me they're cool people.
Can I request for my birthday this year,
Yeah.
if we see each other or the closest to, can you arrive
As a cool person.
as the coolest dude you can be?
I would love so much because I want to do that, but I'm scared people look at me going, why is that guy trying to look cool? He's 43.
So leave your Crocs at home
Okay.
for starters.
But they're white.
Oh, that's exactly why you're leaving them at home. So that's just a request for my birthday present this year.
Yeah, okay.
Hugh the cool dude.
Would love that. I'd love an excuse to dress the way I want to dress,
Okay.
but can't.
Great.
So today we have Nathan Cavaleri.
I mean, for those who know the name Nathan Cavaleri, you probably remember him from when he was a kid. He was a guitar prodigy, featured on Hey Hey It's Saturday all the time. Friends with like Tommy Emmanuel,
Jimmy Barnes.
I don't want to do clickbait, but wait till you hear who his first kiss was.
Yeah. God, you won't believe.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You won't believe
Yeah.
who Nathan Cavaleri's first kiss was with.
Yeah, wait for it.
Yeah, wait for it.
And you'll never guess what she's doing now.
So Nathan Cavaleri, he has been through so much. We know him as like this child guitar prodigy who was so famous and so successful so young. But what he's gone through since then is you won't believe. But it is an incredible story, and he's an amazing guy.
There is so much to Nathan Cavaleri's story from his childhood cancer diagnosis, his incredible life of fame and some of the people he spent time with. And then in his 20s, his really kind of tragic journey with panic attacks and anxiety and fatigue that culminated in him collapsing on stage, and then the sort of road to recovery he's been on since then. Mm-hmm. He's a remarkable person, really inspiring actually. And when we come back, there's something that really resonated with me that I'd love to talk about.
Great hook, great tease.
Thanks.
Here he is, Nathan Cavaleri.
One of the great perks of this job I have on the podcast is I get to have a chat to our guests in the lead up to the interview. And I just felt getting off the phone to Nathan Cavaleri, our guest today. Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you.
I just felt so happy that we're going to be sharing his story. And within 15 seconds of talking to Nathan, I was just thinking, what a bloody wonderful man. So I'm so excited to meet you in person.
That's too kind. I feel exactly the same way. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Yeah.
Now, I think for anyone who is, I'm going to say 40 years and over, absolutely straight away knows the name Nathan Cavaleri.
Yep.
No question. I was at a cafe before, and the guy who works at the cafe I know quite well, and he asked what was happening with the podcast today, and I said, we were chatting to you, and he got so excited about it.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, oh my gosh, what happened to him? How's he going? He was so keen to know. And then when I mentioned to my wife, who's 7 years younger than me, she said, oh, how do I know that name? So I feel like 40 years and up, you absolutely know who Nathan Cavaleri is. And so,
I made the mistake of thinking, oh, Nathan Cavaleri, but then for some reason, because I haven't seen you since you were a kid, I just imagine you still look the same.
Yeah.
It's like the Bart Simpson thing.
Yeah, that's literally been the challenge. Like as long as what I've been around. I mean, like I'd go through puberty and whatever, and people just still thought that I was 10 years old.
I mean, it shouldn't be a challenge. So,
I know.
I grew up like everyone in the whole world has done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in front of the whole world, though.
Yeah.
But it's almost like because you were so, this was sort of the 90s, I guess, I'm thinking, and it's when I was really aware of you. And you really were a character in our lives, like young Nathan Cavaleri was a character.
It's so strange to hear that. I mean, I never really took the time to reflect on those experiences and what they may have been like for anyone in the audience or people who watch TV. But that's what I keep hearing, just almost particularly as an adult. It was just everyday life for me. But it was wild though to go from because I was busking. You know, that was also my little performance, was just busking out front of my mum's coffee shop, which I later found out the reason why there were always girls, at the front was because they'd come down on their lunch breaks. It was a brothel upstairs. Because
Wow.
there'd also be guys who'd get the shits because I'm like, they're trying to get up there without anybody noticing, but now there's a crowd.
Hilarious.
And that's and then it sort of kicked on from there. I went from busking to playing on supporting Jimmy and Diesel. That was a big one because my Jimmy gave us that opportunity. 5-week tour supporting Jimmy and Diesel. Hep Fidelity was Diesel, Soul Deep was Jimmy, big gigs, entertainment centers, but you got to put together your own band. And my dad didn't know anything about that stuff, even though he taught me how to play guitar. He wasn't a professional musician. So he's like, well, what do I do? All right. So he rings up, he's a bricklayer. So he rings up his other bricky mate, Pete. You play a bit of guitar? Yeah. Well, we need a bass player.
For the Jimmy Barnes concert.
Yeah, it's like 2 less strings. You be right playing. So he gets him a bass, pick, and all right, well, there's your bass player. And then Jimmy's drum tech ended up being the drummer.
Oh.
And then my dad's desperately trying to find a guitar player because he had incredible stage fright and couldn't find one. So he's like, I gotta take on this. And that was my band, that whole experience, And every night I'd watch Jimmy and Diesel do their thing, and I felt like that's what kind of made me go, I want to do that.
It's almost like thinking back on it now, it's almost like you joined the family of famous Australian musicians,
really?
And you were like the kid of there's like Jimmy Barnes and Diesel and John Farnham, like it was all, and then you were all of a sudden, it's like they've had a son.
Actually, what probably made me think a little bit more about that was Daryl reached out to me.
Daryl Summers?
Summers, yeah.
Because my memory of Hey Hey It's Saturday is that you were on every single week. That probably wasn't the case, but it felt.
Yeah, I didn't really think of it like that until he randomly reached out to me and just gave me a DVD of all of my episodes. He said,
"Oh wow,
just do what you want. If you want to, do a talk or you want to use whatever."
He didn't charge you for it?
No. And when I looked at it, I was like, I think there was probably 14 shows that I was on. And, I don't like watching myself, but I watched just little snippets of it. It's been long enough for me not to fully cringe, And what occurred to me is that they really kind of created a bit of a home for me because I'd go out and experience the world and they'd always want to know about it. They'd have me back on the show. I would talk about it, do a little performance, and then the following year it'd sort of be the same thing. And, it started off as my, experience with Leukaemia and meeting Mark Knopfler, and then it'd be touring with Jimmy and Diesel, and then it'd be going to America for the first time. And, my growth, and what was happening in my life, they always kind of gave me a means to be able to share that publicly.
And you were probably like, what were you, 12?
6 or
Well, the first time I was on Hey Hey, I was 8.
8.
Yeah.
So this is Hey. For those who don't know, this is Hey Hey at Saturday, which was an enormous Saturday night variety show.
You did
in
miss
Australia.
it.
The show.
You did not miss out that Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were on, it had the effect of like some people might be in the kitchen, other people, and you go, Nathan Cavaleri's on. And everyone comes running into
Really?
it. Yeah.
Certainly
everyone
in our
comes
house.
running into it.
Yeah.
That's a spin out to hear.
Just as a kid who was really interested in music and watching you, it was like real. I found it really it was the most exciting thing for a Hey Hey at Saturday. If you were on it, because it was seeing someone that I was like, oh, that's who I want to be like.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
if it was a Hey Hey that had Cavaleri, great Aussie joke,
Yeah.
Rhonda
Birchmore, red faces. I mean, that's the quadrilla.
Yeah. It's quite a colourful show, hey.
Oh,
They
yeah. showcase
all different types of talent and yeah.
It's crazy.
Did you? This is maybe too early for this question, but I found I had to put some tapes. I don't know why I had to do it. Oh, actually, it was for your Australian story that I had to get.
Hugh's Australian story.
Yes, for Hugh's Australian story, I had to get the old family tapes together and send them to them because they. And I was looking back, and I always had a very sort of these were early teenage years, and I always had a very negative opinion of myself in my brain looking back at those times. And I had this experience that I feel like is something everyone should have, of going back and looking at those tapes and looking at me as a little kid and just going, and especially as a dad now, looking at me and going, you're just a little kid trying to work it out.
Yeah.
And stop being so, I had a lot of compassion and love for myself that I was unable to find.
Yeah, I didn't kind of have that point until much later in life because I would cringe, you know, with everything. And I think, going through high school was really tough. Primary school was actually quite supportive. Things kind of shifted a little bit towards the end of primary school going into high school. Funny enough, the first bit of resistance or, that kind of planted that seed of looking at myself in a different way and not necessarily being proud was actually from the teachers.
Oh,
And then the students kind of followed that.
really?
And then it was...
How did the teachers do that? What
Yeah.
was...
creating rumors. And this is stuff I found out from other teachers. Or just overly being just focused on me because I was in the public eye. So it's kind of... I remember one teacher just felt the need to ground me, by putting me down or humiliating me or whatever. I remember one was busted binning all the votes. So when it came time to, vote for a school captain or whatever, she was busted by another teacher binning all my votes, and her excuse was, "He's got enough attention."
Whoa.
Yeah. Now I was going through leukemia at that time. I felt like, when I reflect on that experience, I needed that confidence. I needed to feel support because I'd go around the playground, with my, obviously hair loss and all that type of stuff. And it was really heartwarming to know that there were some people out there that supported me. The loudest voices were the ones that were flipping my cap off or, doing all sorts of shit like that. And I believed that they were the majority, but they weren't. They were the minority. And I didn't realize that until, all these kids came up to me and said, "We voted for you. We voted for you. We love, love what you do. We love your guitar, blah, blah, blah," and everything. And then when it didn't come through, I was like, oh, and then I found that out later. And that shit happened in high school as well. Jeez. That I found out that, teachers would have full-blown arguments with each other in the staff room over me.
It's a weird tall poppy sort of situation happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong, and I've probably, go at myself a little too much. But one thing I know, I was never a cocky little shit.
Mm-hmm.
My parents made sure of that as well. And I just, I was always, I don't know, I wasn't naturally an extrovert. I kind of wanted to blend in. And
I think that came across as well, and I'm conscious, I also want to go through all the things you've achieved, because I feel like just for context.
I think that's a great idea. I actually, so Bridget sent through a list of your achievements, and it's just, I can't read it all because we won't have time for anything else. So
because I know who you are so well, or at least I thought I did until I read the list of things that you've actually achieved and done and your experiences. And so even if you think you know Nathan Cavaleri, it's like, I don't think we really know the whole,
right.
As far as achievements
Have we
go.
said that Nathan's a guitar player?
No, we haven't.
No, we've really just jumped straight into the depth of it.
I'm assuming we'll say that in the intro.
Oh, yeah, good. Okay, cool.
Context. Yeah.
So
That's the whole intro.
So championship xylophonist Nathan Cavaleri.
I'm just going to mention a couple of things. There's so much here, but some of the things that jump out to me, really. I mean, age 3, you start playing guitar. I mean, my daughter's 3, and this morning she spent the entire morning trying to duck me in front of the nanny. That's all she did all morning, which is horrible for the nanny more than anyone.
There's a career in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You never know.
I'm
sure if Hey Hey was on Red Faces, it'd be interesting.
That'd be huge on Red Faces.
I walked around the whole morning, and it's hard. I'm holding a baby, giving people there, so I'm vulnerable all the time. There's attacks from Elsie, comes flying in an hour and tries to rip my shorts off.
Fantastic.
And I can't stop it because my hands are full, so I yell out, "Don't look, Annie!" That's all I can do. That's all I can do. Anyway, at that age, where Elsie's ducking me, you are learning to play guitar, which I just find amazing. Age 7, you play with Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. Age 9, your debut single debuts at number 63 as a 9-year-old, which is insane. Age 10, you release a song with Jimmy Barnes. And I remember this because 55,000 promotional copies were given away in Uncle Toby's breakfast cereal things.
Yeah. Was it a blue and black and white cover?
Yeah. So you'd get it. It was like, there's a CD now.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tape. They wouldn't give tapes, would they? No, CD.
CD.
Definitely CD. Yeah. I remember it.
CD.
What a brilliant marketing idea.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Age 10, first ever tour supporting Jimmy Barnes and Diesel around Australia. Age 12, you featured in a film, Camp Nowhere, alongside Jessica Alba and Nashville's Jonathan Jackson. It's just crazy. Age 12, you released second album, and you're signed to Sony Records and Michael Jackson's label, MJJ Music. And that album features musicians who play with Guns N' Roses, B-52s, Snoop Dogg. Age 13, you're in Baywatch with David Hasselhoff.
I'm trying to hide that one.
Sorry.
It keeps popping up.
Geez, the new lifeguard in town was pretty young. I don't know if I trust him.
What was your role? Were you his son or something?
No, it was like the spin-off, Baywatch Nights. It's like the way that David said it to me. He's like, it's what the lifeguards do when they're not saving lives in the water. They're solving crimes.
And we need a 13-year-old boy.
So I was like the son of somebody who knew where the $1 million was or something.
Did you have to do an American accent?
No, they kept me Australian.
Oh, okay.
So that was good. Yeah.
Wow.
This is the one that just blows my mind. Age 13, you toured the US with B.B. King. I mean, that is extraordinary.
And I feel like now is the time, and this is the line that I assume that you're sick of hearing, but when you were brought up as coming on this thing, on this podcast, and I had Nathan Cavaleri, the first thing I thought was, very cool, Mr. Cavaleri.
You know what? So I used to get shit for that at school, right?
Yeah.
And then one day I just went, fuck that. I'm proud of this.
Yeah. So that was a McDonald's ad with you and B.B. King.
Yeah.
Where B.B. King says to you, very cool, Mr. Cavaleri, very cool. I'll never forget it.
So that same year, you played for the Clintons to celebrate B.B. King's Kennedy Award.
Bill and Hillary.
Yeah.
The Clintons.
Yeah. Age 13, HBO special playing with Michael Jackson. Age 14, headline tour of the US. You're on Conan O'Brien, I mean, this is what fascinates me, to go through all that by the age of 14. I guess a lot of what this conversation will be today about is what does that do to you? You know, that extraordinary amount of fame, the path that sets you on, it's such an unusual and extraordinary experience.
Yeah, I think one of the big reasons why there was stability, why I think I got out the other side without, too many issues, which I think the mental health problems I suffered later in life, I don't think they really had much to do with having that type of career. Because my family always travelled with me. That was the one non-negotiable, is that the family's got to stick together.
Mm-hmm.
Mum, dad, and my brother. So we did everything together. And I think that's and also just their values. And they never allowed me to kind of get my head all swept up in, and there's a lot of shit, like, especially, I don't want to bag out America, but there's a lot of hype, like when you get to America and everything, and it's so easy to get lost in that.
Yeah, I have heard that's a bit over the top sometimes in America.
Yeah, well, it's like the oversteer of Australia, like sometimes a joke is like Australia will bring you down and America will prop you up. And generally speaking, like I love Australia, and but you just got to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And so I think having the family together was really, really important. Having just normal rituals and everything, where it wasn't just all hype.
So maybe if we go back to the start. So you start playing music, and it's pretty clear from a young age that you're a gifted guitarist, musician, and then you're diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah.
What is your memory of that?
Yeah, I remember the way that I was diagnosed was just through pains in my back that were excruciating. I remember being at my auntie's place, and I don't remember the lethargy and all that like my parents do, that happened, approaching. But I remember being at my auntie's place, and it just felt like somebody was just strangling me until I couldn't breathe. And they took me away, ambulance, and they couldn't work it out. They went to one hospital and they couldn't. They just kept doing further and further blood tests until they discovered that it was leukemia. And that's the world just completely changed then. And I will say that when you go through all the layers to try and work out why you feel the way you feel as an adult, or whatever. And I never really thought that what I went through as a kid had much impact on me as an adult, but I over this last year or two, I'm starting to think twice about that. Because
you mean what you went through with the leukemia?
With leukemia, because I feel like it got me in the habit of anticipating. I think kids on the overall are fairly present, and their anticipation goes as far as like, when's dinner, and maybe, as they go through, school, then it's starting to think ahead a little bit more to homework, or, things they're excited about or whatever. But I ended up getting into the habit without realizing of just anticipating the next operation or the next, procedure, because they were incredibly painful, like having a lumbar puncture every week.
That's like a full-on injection into the spine, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So they'd have to hold me down and turn me into a ball, so my spine's sticking out, and then they'd a needle that big would go into my spine, and they'd draw out fluid.
Like 10 centimeters there, yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
And and I'd have to do that every week. And then
how old are you at this point, Sam?
I was 6.
Oh my God.
Yeah, from 6 to about 8, and but it was. The timing is probably a little inaccurate in my head, but I remember it being every week for a while, every Tuesday, still remember the day, and then they'd space it out a bit more. So I couldn't not be in a state of anticipation, because as soon as I would finish it, I'd feel this victory, like I made it, and then I'm like, I've got to do it next week. And then I'd count down the days. I'd be in a state of anticipation, fear and anticipation, right up until the waiting room, when I'm sitting in this waiting room, knowing I'd have to do this. There's no way out of it. Like it's just, and so I feel like now that I understand, and I've known this for a long time, that you can't really be in a state of anxiety or fear without anticipation, because you're, anticipating what may or may not happen. You can't, presence, that's the anchor. I'm like, I wonder when that first time was, like when where I felt that anticipation of danger, of threat, and it was then. So sometimes I have to remind myself in a weird sort of way that I'm not in a waiting room. That I'm not. There's nothing serious going on here.
How do you do that? How do you change your mindset like that?
I think the hardest part was just discovering that that's what was fueling it. I mean, there's different things that are fueling different memories might be fueling different challenges that I have. So when I just discovered, like it kind of hit me. I was actually doing a random session with a good friend of mine, name's Natalie Sage, who more moves in a world of sort of spiritual life coaching. And we did this meditation, and it wasn't with the purpose of finding that experience. It was just to see what pops up in relation to a challenge I was experiencing, presently. Yeah. And that's what popped up. And it just, I just felt my gut and everything just go, there's something there. And, by the end of the session, I was crying my eyes out, not because I was reliving the experience, just because of obviously what I needed that I might not have gotten back then, that keeps that experience still really alive within me. And so when I worked out what it is that I needed, then it's a nice, just simple, that's the awareness. I now see what's happening in this moment here. I'm just going to take a few breaths, close my eyes, and just remind myself that's the past. There's nothing serious happening here. You got through that as well.
Amazing.
And just that alone just helps to just soften things, where you just go, oh, okay, yeah, cool.
Do you remember the moment you found out that you had defeated cancer, that it was no longer in your life?
Yeah, I was full remission. I think I was touring in America. I was touring a lot during that the whole time. Hey Hate Saturday, if you guys remember, anybody who'd remember me on Hey Hate Saturday, I was doing chemo. I was still doing all that stuff. And it has been said, oh, that's too much pressure. It's the opposite. It's like those experiences of touring and getting ready, to perform and all that, that gave me purpose. That gave me, I didn't see it like that until I realized later in life the power of purpose. But all of those experiences were like little beacons. It gave me a reason to wake up in the morning and go, all right, got to get through this crap in the hospital so I can play this show. So I can get up on stage with Jimmy or Diesel or whatever it is. Meet Martin Offler, like Starlight Foundation. When I do talks for them, that is kind of what I'm drilling into people, is that it is an important part of the healing process.
Can you talk us through that whole experience and how important the Starlight Foundation was to you?
Yeah, beautiful foundation. So I'd heard that they were granting wishes, and for me, I was like, oh, that'd be amazing. And then they ended up coming around to our house, and they got me to write a list. And so I write this big list, and it's got the usual stuff that a kid would like, to get to the end of the rainbow, or go to the moon or whatever. And then I'm like, you know what? I'll put something that's a little less realistic. And
going to the moon.
Up the top, it's like meet Mark Knopfler. Yeah, from Dire Straits. He's my idol. And yeah, I'll never forget when they told us. It was just like, during such a black time as well. It was just this explosion of light. It was incredible. And that was an experience that was, it took a while to happen. So, which was perfect, because that's kind of what helped me to kind of, drive through those really painful days, was just anticipating getting to the UK and meeting him. And so they flew the whole family. First time I'd ever been on a plane as well. And we rock up to Air Studios, and we're sitting there, and there's camera crew there, and yeah, in walks Mark Knopfler, and he's got his guitar and I got mine, and he picks it up. We have a chat, we have a jam over at Blues, and he gives me some tips, and I remember him saying, you're going to be the boss of your band. Like I can tell. And I actually remember him saying something like, is this your guitar? And I said, oh, it's my dad's. And he said, all right, we're going to think about, getting you a guitar. And I say, oh, well, that'd be great. If you can let us know how much it's going to cost, and we'll give you the money to pay for it. And I didn't get that it was a gift. And and when I got home, there was a guitar and an amp in the living room.
Oh.
And
which he'd sent you.
That he'd sent, which later I found out, like only recently actually, that it was actually from his collection. It wasn't.
Oh.
I thought it was straight from the factory until a Dire Straits memorabilia expert said, "Dude, look at the slight stain on between these two frets," and he sent me a photo, Love Over Gold, some of the press shots that he did, and then also it's in the back of a Bob Dylan when he's playing with Bob Dylan. I'm like, shit, that's the guitar. So it kind of meant something even
But that's
more.
so beautiful of him to not mention that. Like, that's so
exactly.
kind of cool.
Didn't mention it. Just super
very
modest
cool,
and,
Mr. Knopfler.
Yeah, you're very cool, Mr.
cool.
Knopfler. And but that's kind of everything changed from there because it was the media captured that experience, and that's we came back to a completely different world. That's when all those TV appearances started.
How like playing guitar? Because I'm assuming that you just loved playing guitar from the start, and you just always loved it. Like, did you always love playing guitar? And how did the playing guitar, if at all, help you through chemo?
Oh, huge. I'd say, so at 3 years old, it's just something I was drawn to, right? So, and it was fun, and it was like, the noise and the tones and the look of it, like everything, But when I went through leukemia, I feel like going through that was what taught me how to express myself through the guitar, to channel emotions, to sit with emotion, with some sort of an anchor of something that I love and allow it to happen.
Do you think the kind of big emotions I imagine that you're experiencing while finding out you've got leukemia, dealing with leukemia at that young age, is that affecting the way you play? I know nothing about
100%.
music. It is.
100%. Yeah, it's the difference between I'm going to play something that's kind of happy, or I'm slamming the fuck out of my strings because I'm angry about something, or it's and same thing. Like with sadness, I could play sadness really well, and that I feel at home playing things that are weeping and there's like my current album at the moment. Some of the probably the most popular tracks are the ones that have that emotional intensity where it's just I call it probably depressingly beautiful. And I've often kind of examined by me sitting in that feeling, does that kind of reconsolidate that feeling within me so that it becomes a regular thing? And I don't think so, because it's almost like music, whether you're playing it or listening to it, you're kind of subconsciously giving yourself permission to digest an emotion.
And experience the emotion.
Yeah, that needs digesting. And I feel like that's why people just get so much out of listening to a song that really speaks to them and makes them stop and just feel something.
But it's fascinating to hear you talk about what it does, like guitar playing does for you, and the joy you got from it, the expression you get through it. But then there was a time you sort of walked away from it.
Yeah.
How old were you then?
I'd probably say I started to walk away from it, I think, from my mid-teens, like 14, 15. I hadn't fully, weirdly, just probably other people's opinions, really. Now that I think about it, kind of, I just, I wasn't surrounded by people who were celebrating what I was doing. I eventually, whether it was the teachers, the kids or whatever, I began to believe what they were saying.
So this is like, obviously it's school you're talking about there, but
yeah, not my family. My family were always incredibly supportive. Yeah.
And then how about the professionally, all the people that you're working with professionally?
Yeah, that changed as well. Like Michael Jackson's label, they were always really supportive of like what I wanted to do creatively. Actually, that was around about that time, we had a choice. It was like this little bidding war between Michael Jackson's label, Prince's label, and Madonna's label.
Get the
And-
fuck out.
And Michael Jackson's label was the only label that gave us creative control. The other two wanted creative control.
Interesting.
And Michael Jackson and his team were just like, we just want to support what Nathan does. So we had a great team. But then in my late teens and early 20s, I was surrounded by the wrong people who would also echo that, guitar is done, just chuck it away, join a boy band, like whatever. It's the goal was completely different for them. They were just seeing success as being the goal and whatever was in fashion at the time or whatever. And it wasn't about what do you want in there. And I didn't know what I wanted in there. I was so corrupted by everybody's opinions and I was pretty hot-blooded teenager as well. So I kind of had this war within myself of like wanting to push back and do the opposite, and I made some choices which I won't share, which I'm glad I didn't put under my name.
Oh, music.
In music, yeah.
Oh, really?
That was a complete oversteer. And but I needed to go through that, and it occurred to me that I never really wanted to be just a guitarist. Like I wanted to be an all-round artist that could express, where I could express myself in different ways, and that's where I'm at the moment with these last two albums. So,
Do you remember what people said at school? Because to me, having a famous person you go to school with, that's living the dream. But like that I would have. I'm so surprised it was.
well, I went to a Morris Brothers boys school.
Right.
That was it's a good school.
Yeah.
And the principal and a lot of teachers were really supportive. But the culture at that school, unless it was sport, they were really footy was huge. Here's the thing is like I thought they just celebrated sport and then that was it. But it wasn't until the episode of Australian Story dropped that I actually was connected by like the footy king, like who was 2 years above me or 2 or 3 years above me. And because in Australian Story, I share that my first day of school was this kid, who was a couple of years above me, showing me around the school, and we'd get to the back of the lockers and he'd go, yeah, you play guitar, don't you? You're that kid. And I could just see in his eyes, I'm like, oh, I don't like, and I'm like, yeah. And I just left it at that. And he went, yeah, okay. And I turned my back. He had me on the ground. He took out a tennis ball. He put his foot on top of my chest and branded it into my face. And just point blank, boom, right in the eye. And
How old were you
had a
then?
laugh. Well, it was my first day of year 7.
Oh, that was year 7.
I was 12. 11, between 11 and
So
12.
really peak of your, fame. And,
Right, yeah, exactly. And that's definitely not a reflection of the school as a whole. So that shit used to happen all the time.
Yeah.
But I share that story on ABC and this footy player reaches out to me and he said that wasn't him that did that. He said that was my first day of school.
That happened to him.
That happened to him in a different way. You're supposed to be the next, king footy player. We'll show you bang, 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 bang and beat the shit out of him. So he said, don't think that it's just because you're a guitar player. Don't even take it personally. Everybody got it. Anybody who was shining, who was really doing well, they got it.
How was
And
that to hear? That you weren't, it wasn't just because of you?
that changed everything.
Wow.
Yeah, completely changed everything. I wish I knew that earlier on because I really thought, like, I walked around my school years thinking that the majority of people hated me for what I was doing, and that's a hell of a belief. And it was a false belief. And even if it was personal, I know that it still wasn't the majority of people that had a problem. It still was a minority. That was just a loud minority, and they taught me a lot.
Yeah, because when I think back, as you said yourself, and it's completely true from what I remember of you on television, is that you weren't a cocky kid, and so you were always this very gracious, nice boy on TV,
That's good to know. Yeah.
and that was the perception. That's what it came across as, and I just was like, oh, he's just this kid. He's just just plays guitar. Like I just remember you just doing these wild solos as like Jimmy Barnes would like clap next to you. It's amazing that anyone would pick on you.
But I think I'm a firm believer of you got to face those situations and not run away from them. And I feel like going through all that is why I can still to this day be put in a room and be the odd one out and still stand strong and confident. Like it doesn't mean I'm not feeling fear or anything like that, but I can just stand my ground, and it's because of facing those situations. I mean, my parents could have pulled me out of school straight up, and they thought about it. And you can obviously imagine the culture there and what I was going through. And for kilometres, you could see the cars driving up the hill, in a beautiful school, and there was the big pickup. That the whole school surrounded this big sort of pickup area. And at the time we were having problems with a pedophile that was stalking us. Oof. And so my parents were naturally really sort of quite controlling with how to get to and from school. So they would always used to drive me. And but one day my mum had an appointment and she couldn't make it. And I said, just let me catch a bus. I'm with friends. It'll be fine. She's like, you're not catching a bus. I'll send a car to pick you up, right? And I'm like, well, put me in a cab or something. Don't send a car. And all right. So I'm sitting there with the only friend that I've made like in school, right? And we're sitting there on the hill and I'm waiting for the car to show up. And in the distance, now 40 boys' school, Southwest Sydney, right? And in the distance, right, talk about state of anticipation, I see a fucking jumbo stretch limo. White one. White. And my stomach's saying, I'm like, no, right? And kilometres. So I'm waiting, I'm seeing it, and it's a traffic jam. So it's getting, and they're, no. And what am I going to do? And as it's getting, and nobody can see it yet. I can see it. And then it gets closer. And then we've got like, over 1,000 kids, right, around. And this stretched limo, right, amongst, Commodores and Land Cruisers. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Fuck it. I'm just not going to get in. I'm not going to get in. Not for me. My car didn't come. Sorry. And I remember my mate next to me, only mate, he said, who's the fucking dickhead who ordered the limo? I'm like, oh no, he's not going to support me. And then it pulls up, it's blocking everybody. Like it's like right in the middle and everyone's looking. The teachers have stopped, everybody's looking right up.
I'm feeling so stressed.
I'm like, I'm just not going to get in until, they've got it. They have a daughter that's kind of like 7 years old. And after about 10 minutes and people were honking horns and getting the shits and everything, she winds down a window and she goes, Mr. Nathan Cavaleri, your limo has arrived. Jesus. And he just looks at me like, really, dude? I'm like, fuck, man. Like, my parents, like...
Did your mum know she sent a limo?
So, boy, did I give her a drilling when I got home. Like, I'm like, you sent a limo? She's like, they didn't send the limo, did they? I'm like, they did send the limo.
Oh, my God.
And she's like, well, I got an appointment tomorrow. I'm like, cancel it. I will tell them. I'll make sure they don't, next day. Nah. Same fucking stretch limo. Happened twice. I had to go through the experience again.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I mean, so that probably didn't help me at school, really. Like,
You've done well to bounce back from that one.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Did you, I don't mean this to be a controversial question and we can just skip right over it if you want. But I watched the Finding Neverland doco about Michael Jackson. Did you meet MJ?
Yeah, I did.
And what was that like? What was the...
It was, it was cool. It was cool. So the first time I met him, because I performed with him as well. So the first time I met him was when we got signed, ready to record the album, and all of us come together and we meet in a hotel room. And it's my family, mum, dad, my brother, myself, my manager, And then his little entourage of about probably 3 people walk in, and he walks in and
what's he wearing? Is he like
he's wearing a suit.
Suit? Oh, so he's not like in performance. I imagine he's always wearing a white glove.
Always wearing a white glove. No, he's just suit. I could see when I shook his hand, and this is the first time that I went, man, people are fuckers, you know, like how they give him shit for being white and all that type of stuff. He's got that crazy skin pigmentation disease, and I could see it under his suit jacket, just how blotchy it was. It was just, you know, and so then I'm like, well, that's why. Like he's just evening out his skin, so it's not all just blotch. I mean, but just really lovely, soft-spoken, the opposite to what you see him on stage being as this bold and fiery, you know, entertainer.
Did he walk forwards or backwards?
Well, funny you should say that, because my brother goes, when at the end they go, so you have any questions? And you know, it's Michael Jackson. Like, and I was all shy and everything, and you know, nobody wanted to say anything. My much more confident younger brother goes, yeah, can you do the moonwalk?
Did you do it?
No, he goes, oh, I've got my lawyer's shoes on today, so I'm afraid not. And then the second time I met him was performing with him for an HBO special in New York. So I played black and white with him. And
did you really?
Yeah, and we're doing the end.
The opening,
all of it.
Yeah.
And then
is there footage of that somewhere? Do you know if there's any?
There would be, because we went as far as the dress rehearsal, and I know they were filming there. So I think Australian Story were trying to get a hold of it, but HBO are a bit tight, lockdown. And
what happened to the dress rehearsal there?
So we're playing, singing, get to the end of the song, that last sort of outro, and he's right there, and I'm here, the other guitar player right here, and we're finishing off black and white, pyro's going off and everything. He drops to his knees, bang, out, face plants the foldback speakers, and I thought it was part of the show because everything's so theatrical. I mean,
Michael Jackson faints.
He completely passed out, didn't wake up. Well, he eventually did, but they and security. Well, the music was still going. Again, it's like I was jumping through fake quad box speakers and all sorts of stuff. Like I thought, and then they just took him away. And that's the first time I'd seen the dark side of music. That music is not, you know, for artists is not just about having fun and playing and everything's amazing or whatever. I mean, he was so broken down and exhausted and everything.
That's what it was. He was just exhausted.
Just gone.
Right.
Gone. And then the gig didn't happen, which is kind of a good thing, because B.B. King had me on tour, and we were always really we all felt uneasy about me doing that gig, because my parents were always like, no matter how big the artist is that you're working with, if you can't showcase what you do, like here, then it's the wrong type of promotion. Wow. And that's exactly what that was. I mean, I was running around like Macaulay Culkin, jumping through quad box speakers, and you know, I wasn't doing what I do. And and B.B. King's manager said that if they saw that, they probably wouldn't have me on tour.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So
because it wasn't truthful to you.
Nah.
Not the kind of person.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredibly wise of your parents.
Yeah, I still drill them on, okay, so if you're all about credibility, what happened when you, why did you get me to do Pause? Movie.
What's Pause?
It's me and a dog, talking dog.
What did B.B. King think of Pause?
Yeah, that's right. Baywatch Nights. Yeah, where were you on that, with that decision?
Yeah, good point.
Oh, so was it you and a talking dog? Was it like
Billy Connolly was the talking dog?
Oh,
I mean, I understand why you did it then.
Yeah.
Billy Connolly.
Yeah, but they didn't know it was Billy Connolly until after. So
okay.
Wow.
But you know,
what was Billy like?
Nah, he did it over in Scotland.
He wasn't inside the dog.
Yeah, he wasn't in the yeah. His breath stank.
That's what I was picturing. How are you going to do that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Heath Ledger was in that one. Actually, it's a funny thing now that I think about it, is that two of the biggest stars played small roles in the movies that I was in. So Camp Nowhere, Jessica Alba.
Yeah.
And who played a tiny role in that, and Heath Ledger in Pause.
What was it like working with Jessica Alba?
Jessica Alba, we were friends for a fair bit, about a year, and she kissed me and I froze up. Like I froze. Well, yeah, but like so then I kind of was, I mean, that was sort of my first kiss. Like
Jessica
your first
Alba.
kiss was just Jessica Alba.
Well, yeah, like.
But you didn't kiss her back.
I mean, she kissed me. I wouldn't say I kissed her. I just didn't know how to, like, they're really experienced in America. That's the other thing with kids. Like, they're like, and so she was, she knew exactly what she was doing and she was much taller than me as well. I was still waiting for my growth spurt and I still am, but she picked me up. Like, she hugged me. She picked me up. And fucking... And gave me this huge kiss. Well, she was the woman. She was 12 years old and she was a 12-year-old woman. And she picked me up and just gave me this big pash. And I was like, ah. And
sucking the life out of it. But then, I mean, I didn't get to the end of that experience with the belief that, that did anything for my self-confidence with girls. I mean, that's... Yeah, the embarrassing experiences are insane.
So do I understand it right that after a certain stage you stopped playing guitar?
Yeah.
And stopped playing music altogether or just stopped playing guitar?
No, I still was writing. I was more producing, learning how to produce and stuff. I got a job as a brickies labourer for a fair while. And I was just lost, just trying to find myself. You dropped
out of school, didn't you? Is that right?
No. I finished year 12.
Then you went into being a brickies labourer?
Yeah. I was kind of doing weekends anyway, just to earn some money and just trying to work out what I wanted to do. And then I ended up in a world of screen composing.
Yeah, okay.
That's kind of what my bread and butter was for a long time. And I think the person who kind of made me question the beliefs I had about myself was a guy called Cole Hartman, who was a drummer in the Screamin' Jets for a while. And he was all about waving your freak flag. Who you are, be proud of it, and he did that, and so I put together a band with him. It was really important years, even though, I was still trying to find myself as a front man in terms of just confidence and going, I should be proud of the guitar player that I am and me. And I probably didn't reflect on my achievements as a kid until much later. And that was for a certain reason as well. But, and that's kind of what put me on the trajectory of trying to find myself as an artist again.
So when you were in a period of, late teens is confusing for everyone, let alone someone who's gone through everything that you've gone through. Do you think I guess there's two questions I want to ask. First one is, did the move away from being proud of your guitar work and the musician that you were, was that more directed by the success that you were having and the music industry and that life, or the experience at school? Or both?
Stepping away was a part of it was because Michael Jackson sold his label. The world was no longer kind of, when the world is like going, all right, you need to change directions now.
Things are changing around.
Yeah. So you just take a bit. So there's a bit of that.
Yeah.
Like we did a lot from 8 years old to 12 to 14. Like it was pretty crazy. So even just from my parents were like, let's just pull it back and give him some space to try and work out, what he wants to do this next sort of chapter in life. They always checked in with me even throughout that process. Do you still want to do this? Do you still want to do this? They were the opposite to stage parents. But this was just like, no, we need to go back home fully, go to school, create that space. Then the other part of it was definitely the belief systems that I didn't check on the way in from kids at school and just even just bad industry advice, all that type of stuff. I mean, that's the first time that I stepped away. The second time that I stepped away was when I was going through all my mental health issues, and that's a completely different thing. Yeah.
Which we should definitely get to. But the second part of the question, I hope this doesn't come across as blunt, but when you stepped away and through that process, did it or you feel like a failure?
No. Failure, round 2, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But no, round 1, not a failure, just lost.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just lost and I mean, a part of me a little bit was like, wow, all these doors, were open. The industry was open arms, for so long, and now it all feels a bit closed, and you do feel a little bit discarded. But yeah, a little bit discarded and then just lost. Yeah.
The reason why I ask about the failure thing is because and maybe it doesn't then, this question is just a null question, but I was kind of struck by the idea that the thing you were saying earlier about the anticipation of pain in your leukemia treatment and the effect that you realise that now had on you. I was wondering if you'd reflected on the anticipation of success in music as well.
Yeah, again, later, I never understood people who go, oh, fear of success is, it's a thing. I'm like, what? I didn't get that. And I got it round 2, where it was like the anticipation of things doing well and what that will bring and what challenges will come with it that I won't be ready for and all that. And I felt like subconsciously it was a bit of self-sabotage for a long time. Round 2.
Should we talk about what round 2
round
means?
2.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, I mean, Nat Cole and the Kings was my band that I had for a while.
Nat Cole and the Kings.
Nat Cole and the Kings, yeah. Cole, me and Cole. And
how old were you then?
This was more sort of mid to late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're touring and we're starting to do well. And but around about that time, I'm going to say trigger warning, but I'm sure this, people assume that anyway, that I just had a lot of death around me. And it started from when I was probably 23 or 24, where I lost an old friend that I grew up with, who was a few years younger than me. And then that same year, I'd lost a musician friend of mine. I remember Disco Montego, Dennis and Darren.
The name rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah, and they used to be called Kalen as well. And he passed away, and I'd only seen him not so long ago, and it just did something to me in my head where I remember coming home from work, labouring, and I just had this spin out where I was like, that's going to happen to me one day. Coming off the back of leukemia, it was like I felt invincible. So it was like I beat cancer, and let's just slay, and I didn't really respect my body too much. I just felt like I was invincible, and if I was always exercising, training, and martial arts and all that type of stuff, but not because of longevity or anything like that. I'm young and I'm just going to slay, and
I hear you.
Yeah, and I'm sitting at the lights, and it just really hit me. It really hit me like it's never hit me before. And I would say that's probably the first time I had an anxiety attack. Now that I know it's an anxiety attack, I didn't know it was at the time. I just felt out of my body. Everyone experiences anxiety attacks in different ways. I don't really get the heart palpitations or the this. I actually feel almost like that derealization, depersonalization, where nothing feels real and you feel tripped out and heightened with adrenaline, and then that happened, and it kind of came about at a time when I'm thinking about dying, and so I felt like I was leaving my body in a weird sort of way, and it just tripped me out, and that changed everything. That completely changed everything. So it kept happening.
And so this is you kind of like thinking and fearing death?
Death, that's right, yeah. There's a lot of death around. So it's becoming a real reality, and I just didn't know how to process it. The more I tried to stop thinking about it, the worse it got. This is before I understood, the relationship between thoughts and feelings, emotions, beliefs, all that type of stuff, self-awareness. So I'm just walking around in a state of constant reaction. And these derealized anxiety attacks are happening in all sorts of situations, right? So I was then blaming the situation. So I'm going, I'm having one of those episodes at dinner with a friend. Now I'm afraid to go to dinner with a friend. That's going to happen again. I don't know how I'm going to get out of it, and then bit by bit, the world just started to get smaller, but I was also touring at the same time. So I'm touring with Nat Cole and the Kings, and we play Queenscliff Music Festival. And by this stage, I was probably two years into it hijacking my sleep. So now I'm afraid to go to sleep at night.
Jeez.
I'm afraid to go to sleep because I need as much sleep as possible so I don't feel more of that derealization. And then obviously freaking out about not sleeping makes it worse. And, you know, anybody who's had insomnia, you'd kind of know that sinking feeling when you start to hear the birds chirp and the engines start up and you're like, I'm fucked. You know, this is going to be a roller coaster of a day. And so that was happening for a good couple of years. And I'm trying to tour like that, right? So we get to Queenscliff Music Festival. I'm having another night where I just can't sleep. I can't sleep at all. I'm feeling lethargic. I can't hold any food in. It's 45 degrees at this festival. My wife was actually singing for me at the time, backing vocals, and a really high energy blues rock band. You know, a great show, great. We had a lot of great times. And I get up on stage and I push through. Like as I'm having an anxiety attack, I'm like, I got to get through this. Up on stage, and that's how I did it when I was a kid, going through leukemia. That no matter how sick I was, the stage was my remedy. It was the solution. It was like once you get up there, you'll be fine, right? They're more physical, you know, things, right? So I try to approach it the same way, and I get up on stage and it seemed okay up until probably the second or third last song. And I remember hitting a big note and then doing a Michael Jackson. I collapsed on stage, but not a full-blown collapse. It was just a pins and needles, derealization, and then just gone. And I'm looking at it like 1,000+ people.
Do you know how long you were out for?
Oh, it wouldn't have been much. Yeah. And actually, this is what I want to talk about making sure that you are remembering something accurately, because when you don't remember something accurately and you blow it out of proportion, it will affect everything moving forward.
Whoa.
And so as far as the story I told myself for a long time was, I fucking collapsed, gone. I run off stage because I can't, and this is true, I can't make out what's going on. I get off stage. What the fuck is happening to me? Nobody's told, like, I don't know what this is.
And what's the reaction from people around you?
Well, they just think I'm being a rock star.
Oh, right.
You know, haha, this is fucking rad.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm off stage. I'm freaking out and I'm going, I got to finish this set. And it's boiling. It's boiling hot. I got industry in the crowd as well, you know, that I care about, like what they think. I just get up on stage. You know, I didn't want to let anybody down. That's what got me up on stage. If I didn't give a shit about that, I would have done the runner. I finished the set. I get off stage and I do feel this momentary victory until I realize in an hour and a half's time, I've got to be on main stage and I've got to do an hour and a half set in this state. And I freaked. Gone. I was gone. I was so gone. They had to drive me back to the accommodation. I'm trying to sleep. I'm stuck between the two worlds of, you know, lethargy and anxiety and but
adrenaline
again,
as well.
Adrenaline. I don't know what's happening. I got to be ready for a gig. You know, I was a self-managed band at the time, so I didn't have a manager or a tour manager or anybody to kind of help me through it. And I got to the gig and I'm like this,
shaking,
and I get through it, but tentatively. And that's the experience where my special place on stage shattered, gone. Now that's something to fear, just like all these other environments. And I tried to tour through it for about a year, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And I had to stop. And I had to stop, not even with the intention of trying to work it out. I just had to stop because I couldn't face it anymore, and I didn't know how to. You know, and
that's devastating. It's like it's your remedy, has been for such a long time, and then you can't even have that. No,
and I remember trying to get help for it was really tough. I mean, I think it'd be a bit different now. I mean, this was in 2012 roughly. But trying to get help for that, it's it was really, really tough. You know, the diagnosis I got with, you know, in 15-minute sessions, I mean, if I don't know what drove me to take the path that I did, because nobody else around me really took that path. And I didn't even know that there was another path. The only path that was presented to me were pills and no education, nothing, you know, like a meditation, which I did dive into and so, you know, helped me to a certain point, was essential, and I still meditate because of it. But I mean, and I suppose this is why I'm so passionate about sharing, you know, what my experiences were, because nothing was more, there's never been a more low point in my life than spending a year trying to get answers, blood work, and hoping there's a fucking problem, because I can't live like this anymore. Like I'm having an anxiety attack over whether to brush my teeth before or after having a shower. Legitimately, it's fucking funny now, but I'd have to. I remember I was scheduled for an interview with ABC Radio, and I had nobody there to help me. I just woke up, and I wasn't even asleep, and I'm just that far gone. Like the simplest things were just.
So how many a day are we talking? Like multiple?
Well, it's hard to say what an actual definition between the actual attack or whatever,
right,
but
yeah.
I would have at least 10 washes of it throughout the day.
Was there a point where you thought, I'm never going to get over this?
Yeah. So that point where I was hoping that they'd find something after a year or so, I go into the doctor and they say to me, all your bloods have come back and they're perfect.
Oh, and you feel crazy. And
I got in the car and I broke down and I was like, I can't live like this. I can't live like this. And, you know, I do believe in, you know, kind of little, you know, the world throwing you a bone or synchronicities and stuff like that. And wow, this is a first. And I just remember an old life coach that I had saying to me, my mum is a clinical nutritionist, works with an integrative medicine doctor. You should look at your body physiologically, what's going on. You know, it's different to kind of the schooling of what you may get from certain, you know, GPs or whatever. And I just was like, nah, like, you know, I'm not in sport. You know, I don't need to be extra, you know, healthy or whatever. That's kind of what my belief was about it. And but I remember her number was still in my car. So I'm having this meltdown and I'm like, it was just there. And I'm like, fuck it. Anything. I'll do anything. And so I called her and she said, send me, because I had the email of the bloods. She said, send me the bloods. I send her the bloods. And she calls me straight away. She's like, oh my God, your body is not working for you at all. There is so much we can do. And you're not crazy for feeling how you're feeling. No wonder you feel like this.
Wow.
And that was like an angel to me. That was just like, fuck, there's fucking hope. You know, so that's the first path I went on.
So what was she? She was a nutritionist?
She was a clinical nutritionist, she worked hand in hand with an integrative medicine doctor. And those guys built my body back up. I went from, and this is without.
Are we talking with food here, like the food you're eating?
None. We're talking supplements, gut tests.
Yeah, okay.
Testing for all sorts of, you know, parasites and stuff that kind of sits in the grey area. You know, when I drilled my local GP about it, why was the interpretation different? And she's like, well, we go on, you know, epidemic size research, generally speaking, and they deal a bit more with the grey areas, and which is exactly where I need to be, because this wasn't working. And that's the other thing is like I'm alive because of that, you know, accessible mainstream medicine, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not against it at all, but they weren't helping me there. I had to try something else, even if I thought it was a bit woo-woo. And not that was. Between gut health, working on my gut, the different supplements, and there was some like trial and errors, like, oh, right, this protocol doesn't work. And I was okay with that because it is a grey area. And they warned me about that. And, you know, I without even the help from my psychologist at the time, which I started a little bit later, I went from like having 2-3 hours sleep, to having consistent 5-6 hours sleep, not feeling these crazy hyperglycemic moments, that were also exacerbating what I was going through. My adrenals were fucked. I'm starting to have normal sleep. I'm starting to feel normal. I'm starting to feel strong. I don't no longer need a nap after going for a power walk. That's how bad I was. Like I was a heavy trainer but yet I couldn't go for a walk without having a fucking nap. So they helped to build my body back up. And then I went to work with my psychologist on my mind.
Do you mind? Before you were like tearing up a little bit, and it's beautiful. But you said it's a first. But I was just wondering, what was it that you were thinking or feeling that got you emotional like that?
Probably. Yeah, it's probably been happening a bit lately because I'm starting to just be a little bit more compassionate, and work on my self-love. Like I can reflect on that experience and not be. It's more like I just want to give that version of me a big hug, and give him what he actually needed,
rather than a sort of shame thing. It's
rather than
I
love. Think it was never really shame. I never really had problems with shame. It was more whip cracking.
How do you mean?
Just like fucking get on with it.
Okay.
Harsh on yourself.
Yeah, just harsh, like frustration, more just like, from the point of view of this is fucked. Funny enough, fear was never my problem growing up. It was anger, and I had a huge temper.
Really?
Right up until, and I have this kind of theory as to I wonder whether there's a relationship between, that fiery anger temper that just kind of feels like almost an outward anxiety attack because I'd kind of go black and not really know what I did in the moment. It kind of happens the same, but inside, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But music was still like an anchor. I mean, I think the reason why I returned back to music was because during that time, I kept writing, but I never believed that I'd ever be able to play on stage again. No way. I could barely get my head around the idea of being social again. I just didn't have any trust in my mind and my body that I wasn't going to have an anxiety attack, which later I realized it's that fear of fear keeps you stuck in that cycle. I had to make peace with feeling fear. I had to learn how to be with fear and still move forward. And, all the things that you guys know about how I talk to myself and acceptance and love, being able to kind of ride those waves to get to the other side, repackaging up, the past in a more accurate way. So that story that I told you about Queenscliff Music Festival, in my head, the dialogue was, it almost ended me. If that fucking happens again, I'm gone. I was out, it was because I was going insane or whatever. The reality is that I hyperventilated because I was shallow breathing, right? It was 45 degrees. I was exhausted from, sleeping stupidly. And I pushed myself too much and I ended up believing shit and I was in a state of anticipation. That's all it was. All of those things can be fixed. I can fix them. No, I don't need to rely on anybody else, and so I kind of went back to that and it didn't end me. I did get through it. That's realistic thinking, not necessarily the positive thinking, but like just that is the reality. So then I started to package up in a healthier way. But back to, writing music that was a constant throughout the whole thing until I got together these songs and I went, I don't want to turn my back on the thing that I have loved my whole life because of fear. I'm now facing fears in little ways and I'm seeing how my world is opening back up again. Things that I was afraid of, I'm no longer afraid of. What if that's the same when it comes to music? And that's kind of like the big gauntlet for me, right? And so I'm like, all right, I've got these songs. I feel like the world is saying you're ready. And then I just had to take the leap. And you know what? I'm going to do it under my own name. That's the first release, which was Demons, my the album before this one. And I would just kind of baby steps.
How long had it been since you performed as Nathan Cavaleri?
Oh, wow. I hadn't performed as Nathan Cavaleri since I think maybe the opening ceremony of the Paralympics in 2000.
Wow.
When they put me in those stupid fucking pajamas. Yeah.
I don't remember
You Google
that.
my name, that's still the fucking first thing that pops up. It's these blue and gold pajamas with some shit in my hair. Like, it was, but yeah, that was probably the last time. Yeah. Going out with a bang.
So how did that? So when you get back up on stage as yourself, as Nathan Cavaleri, does it feel the same as when you were a kid as Nathan Cavaleri? Like,
At first it didn't, because it was like, I mean, really, like my goal for those first few gigs, if not the year or so, was just prove to myself that I can do it. Had to make peace with as well. You may have an anxiety attack on stage like you have before, but again, that habit of fearing the fear of fearing that happen will keep all that alive. It'll keep me stuck. So I had to, that was probably one of the hardest things, was to just go, all right, I've got the tools. I know how to ride this wave. I have in the past. I wasn't educated in the past and I still got through it, right? And when it washes over you, you know what to do. And so I get up on stage and it was just literally the goal. I need to just get through it. I didn't want to set the bar so high that I know I was going to fall short. I know I'm not going to enjoy it.
mm-hmm.
Like I just got to prove to myself that I can do it. And then the next show, I do it again and then again and again, and it get a little bit easier. So on the overall, now I feel like I'm back to being a kid on stage again, where it is catharsis. You know, it's probably even better than when I was, because ignorance is bliss back then, and now I know where I've been and how dark things can get, and now I'm still here and I'm up on stage and I can connect with audiences like that, and and all of these songs of Miracles and Demons have been created out of those experiences, inspired by those experiences. I mean, some of the songs, I can't help but feel, those emotions when I'm playing them on stage. Sorry, did I just babble, by the way?
No, it wasn't babble.
It's awesome.
I mean, you are here to be interviewed. So.
It's your job. That's what you're here to do.
I loved the thing you were talking about before, with how important it is to get the story right and accurate, because I feel like I have always resisted, and the difference between positive thinking and realistic thinking and how important that is, because I think I've always sort of resisted the positive thinking idea because it always felt like sort of optimistic dreaming that isn't real, whereas the way you're talking about it before seems like a kind of realistic but really compassionate reality.
Like I remember listening to your podcast on the inner critic.
Oh, Dr. M?
Yeah, and she was talking about the studies showing that favoring kind of more acceptance over positive thinking or whatever. And I really, whoever said that, whenever you do positive thinking, you got this thing, and it's like, that's fucking bullshit. That's bullshit. That's my experience with positive thinking as well. But having said that, is that it's not to say that there's not positives in life. The ones that are more powerful for me are rooted in an experience that you've already had. So, and getting that right to include everything. I remember this analogy of like, you can be focused on something negative that's happening, right? But include everything, like widen that lens, because then that's not taking up everything in your field.
Get the whole picture.
The whole picture. Which includes, will always include some really awesome things and positive things. It's just,
You ended your Australian Story interview by saying you used to have plenty to play. Now you've got plenty to say.
Yeah.
And it's just such a privilege to hear you say it all today, because the journey you've been on, I've never heard anything like it. But to hear the work you've done to come out the other end and to have the joy you have back on stage, it's just been a privilege to listen to you speak today.
Thank you. I appreciate the time, guys. Yeah, what an absolute ball.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
How good. I just can't stop. I mean, there's so much about Nathan's story that I'm like thinking about since we recorded that. But probably the number one thing I'm thinking about is Jessica Alba picking him up and kissing him.
Physically picking him up.
Physically picking him up.
It's a great visual, isn't it?
It is incredible.
And having met him, I understand why she wanted to do that.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Why?
Oh, he's just a lovable man.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful man. Yeah, she's got good taste, Alba.
Always said that about Alba.
Yeah, we've always said that. I stick by it.
I thought it was an incredible chat. He was so honest about his life. But there was a specific bit of it that I thought was interesting that he mentioned, how he needed to get his body right before he started seeing a psychologist to work through some of the issues that he needed to talk through. And that for him, being able to access that trauma and that life experience, he needed to be healthier from a physical point of view, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
It resonated with me because it's something that I feel like it's almost like one of the tea house cards. What is something that took you too long to learn?
Oh, yes. Yep.
And he talked about this in relation to after his collapsing on stage and when he wasn't sleeping and all this kind of stuff, that what he needed to do was get his body right, basically. And it got me thinking about, I think is mind-body connection a real thing, or is that woo-woo?
Oh, it's absolutely a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Because it got me thinking in those terms, and it made me realize that for so much of my life, since I was sort of forever really, I've sort of seen them as separate things, that like my mind is one thing and my body is separate.
So you like have to work on each one separately in a way.
Yeah, and unaware of the impact that being healthy has on my mental health and state of mind.
I think all of us are probably only really just realizing that in the last like couple of years. It's like become sort of a known thing that they are connected. But it is, you're right. But we've sort of grown up thinking that they're not the same or they're not connected. Yeah.
And for me, I think the most sort of specific example is something that I think I mentioned at the live shows when I actually pulled the card, what is something that took you too long to learn. And it was about alcohol. And it could be applied to food and everything, because the more I try and eat more healthy and try and move a little bit, because I've never been good at either of those things, the more I start to notice how things in my body make me feel and how that, from an emotional point of view. But the thing that I think is really pointing for me was that I used to drink a lot and like go out quite a lot and party and stuff, as I've told you guys. But I would sort of drink from sort of like from the age of like 18, I reckon. I'd probably drink from Thursday through till Sunday pretty heavily. And then when I had a little bit more money, probably Wednesday through till Sunday. And I wasn't, I didn't think I had a problem at the time. And I certainly was not your standard like alcoholic, because I wasn't sneaking. I didn't drink outside those times. I didn't sneak alcohol. I wasn't really the first at the pub waiting for other people. I wasn't good at going home because I was having so much fun. And during this time, I was seeing a psychologist and working through a lot of stuff, and was unable to really thrive in all areas of life. And I think at the time, in the back of my mind, I thought, the drinking I'm drinking to mask the negative emotions, the negative self-talk, the things that I say about myself, about like how, useless I felt, how I was sort of languishing in my career, all these not nice things to say about yourself. And as I said, at the time, I think in the back of my head, I thought, it's probably masking that pain. And maybe it was to a small degree for a little bit, but what I actually didn't really take into account was how much the drinking was actually causing the negative voice, I think, in hindsight. Yeah. And it's only been since having children really where my lifestyle changed so much that I could no longer really go, like time-wise, I couldn't go out because I'm raising children with Soph. And then also, as any parent would know, the hangover with young kids is about the worst feeling you can have. So I'm trying to avoid that as much as I can.
Changing a nappy when you're hungover is one of the worst things you'll ever do.
Is that just because of just the physical, the smells and or is it the guilt?
It's a fair bit to... Oh, no, the guilt's got nothing to do with it. No,
I was going to say the guilt's big.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Different experiences.
Oh, no, mate. Couldn't give a fucking shit about the guilt, mate. Mate, I'm slamming as many cans as I can.
If I've been slamming cans till 3 a.m. and I'm up changing a nappy, I'm not feeling guilty. I'm feeling like I'm the nicest dad alive.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's interesting. The difference.
Right. For me, with a hangover, it's like at the moment I wake up, I feel guilty. Even if I've done like nothing, not that I do things that are wrong all the time, but even if there was like a really justified reason for that, like if it's a friend's wedding or something, I still feel guilty, like I've done something wrong.
Okay. Well, I should preface that by saying I actually reckon I've done it once, changed a nappy hungover in my life. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a regular thing.
probably feeling proud. It's like, oh, I went out last night.
Yeah, look at me.
Yeah.
Legend.
Yeah, okay.
But it was only until I've started to spend a lot more time with alcohol not in my system that I've started to realize how much of, like, if you just look at hours of the week that I was feeling when I was drinking, pretty shit about myself from Sunday till probably Wednesday. And then by sort of Thursday, I started to feel like myself again, and then I'd drink again. So therefore, I'm spending like more days of the week feeling shit about myself because of the alcohol. And now that I don't drink as much, it feels like my brain is literally recovering, and so is my mental state, because I'm spending more time not feeling affected by it, and then the mental state, the negative self-talk isn't there either. So I have more time to say positive things about myself, basically.
Yeah.
But it also, as I'm saying all this, I feel kind of like it's a bit sort of smug or easy for me to say looking back. When I said this at the live show, you said you wanted to tell me at the time to sort of drink a little less.
There was a problem and you should stop. Yeah. That's what I wanted to say. But and the question I asked was, how would have that been received if I did? Because I chose not to say that to you. And the question was, how would it have been received?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been received well, and I probably wouldn't have stopped because to me it feels like you've always had this amazing capacity to understand your body and your mental state and say, oh, that activity is actually not making me feel good, so I'm going to stop that now. And I just, in the throes of it, I didn't feel like I had that capacity at all. And it would almost, hearing it from someone who it seems from the outside that sort of self-control comes somewhat easily, it would feel almost offensive to me that you don't understand what it's like. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, Ryan, you said earlier, you feel like we've all learned this in the last couple of years. I honestly felt like I knew it at school. I always did much better in classes after lunch because I'd play basketball at lunchtime frenetically and be exhausted and then go into, and I just felt so much better about myself and my self-esteem, and I just loved class after lunch because I just was much more switched on. So I think I always felt from a very young age so acutely aware of the impact that my physical health and activity and being active had on my mental health. And I've always done exercise really because it just makes me feel so happy.
Whereas I've never had a consistent exercise regime. It's always just been laced with this sense of guilt and not enoughness. Interesting
though that you've been on the I think it's a bit of a snowball effect, like alcohol is well and truly out of your system now. You have started using the Peloton semi-regularly. I just think...
fasting, like to allude to, because I was probably carrying a bit more weight than I would like to, and was probably that is good for me. Yeah. So fasting in the mornings, like I had two, there's a bowl of lollies out there, and I know that you two would never eat them, whereas I could not walk past without having, I went back twice for more. So I still have, there's something about me that has less self-control, but it does, you're right, it does snowball. Like I can find more self-control than I used to be able to. Yeah.
I think growing up, it's so interesting, Hugh, that you were so aware of how exercise affected your mood. I was never, because I didn't exercise that much. I played a lot of sport, but it wasn't for any other reason other than just I liked playing sport. I had no awareness of how it made me feel or how it affected my cognitive abilities or anything like that. But I think now, as I'm getting older, like late 20s now, it's sort of like I'm starting to think like, the number one thing I'm like so focused on now to protect is my brain and like my ability to think and think the best way I can. Yeah. Whether it might just be it could be for work reasons, but it also just to be like as good of a person with friends or whatever. Like to just be, to feel good.
Sorry to cut you off, but I feel like what you're saying is to live as fulfilling life as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I know there are definitely days where I come in here to do an episode to record. Some days I feel unbelievable and it's pretty much always the days where I've done the good things for my body. And of course, like I'd be lying if I said it wasn't also, doing exercise and eating well. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't also for vanity reasons. Like, of course, that's a part of it. But the main reason, like I don't want to do weights because I want to be muscly. I don't have any reason to need to want to be fit or anything, except other than the fact that now I know that the more exercise and things the better I eat, it makes me feel better and it makes my brain better. And I do, from everything I've read and heard, it's like I will be better for longer if I do these good things now.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think I was just thinking of a small thing that I do now that there's no way I would have done this 5 years ago, even a couple of years ago. I feel like I've had to, it snowballs, as you said, and it's purely just like having a hot, cold shower in the morning, like alternating for me, which kind of resets me and makes me feel really alive. And if I'm in a bad mood for whatever reason, waking up feeling a bit grumpy, if I do that, usually shocks me into a state of, okay, you're ready to go. And it's unpleasant. And there's no way I would have done something that is physically unpleasant a few years ago for an outcome for my mental health. But now I feel like that's an easy thing I can do, and I know it just, and it's really exciting to me that my brain can change like that, because I thought I would never be a person that could do something as simple as alternating a hot, cold shower in the morning. Yeah. The thing that I think is worth mentioning though is that it's also, it goes both ways. Like, and I don't want to minimize anyone who it's really hard. Like it's to do anything, the smallest thing that is good for your physicality that is going to affect your mental health. It can be really, really hard, having been there myself, and still there somewhat, because the connection goes both ways. If you're feeling really low or you're suffering from a mental illness or anything like that, taking the steps that might, by all logical means, help you with your body might just feel too much, too hard to do. And I've been there myself, and I just want to kind of acknowledge that is really fucking hard for a lot of people. Yeah.
And it could be for so many reasons. It could be for neurodivergent reasons. Like I know like a lot of ADHD, a big thing is not being able to actually get up and do the thing you want to do. And that is just a real thing. Some people's brains are just different. And it's, you're right, Josh. It's just it's very, very hard, if not impossible for some people most days. Yeah.
Anyway, a fascinating conversation with Nathan, and I think also just a great one to mull on yourself, as in if you are someone who's lucky enough to be in a position to think, I'm feeling motivated to look after my body at the moment, and just to have a think about the link to your mental health and wellbeing, because I think it's such an important thing to be aware of, but also to put into practice if you're lucky enough to be in that position to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Josh. As your older brother, it is hard to listen to, but also so joyous to see you reflecting on that from a healthy place.
Thanks, Nathan Cavaleri.
And to Nathan, very cool, Mr. Cavaleri.
Very good.
Very cool.
The only way we can end this chat.
As the great B.B. King once said.
Classic face melter.
Oh, yes.
B.B. King.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
See you next time.
See you, bye.
Bye.
Can I be a fascination?